Hello and welcome back. And it's Archetypes Tuesday, and Meghan's new episode with Mariah Carey has come out. So I'll be reading through some excerpts here and pointing out some highlights to me. And I would like to know what stood out to you in the comments section below. So let's get straight into this. And it starts out this way, where Meghan says that I'm Meghan, this is Archetypes, my podcast about the labels and tropes that try to hold women back. Now, if anyone could help me see the diva in a new light, it would be the woman who wears this word daily, proudly, and abashedly. I think you might know who it is. The one and only Miss Mariah Carey. So it starts out with going through Mariah Carey's achievements with her decades-long career, her studio albums, which are 15 and have sold more than 200 million records across the globe. She's won 5 Grammys. She was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2022, one of the only 33 women welcomed in since 1969, compared to the more than 400 men. And they say she's not just a singer, but a songwriter. She's also a producer, an actress, a mother, and known worldwide, and unapologetically a diva. So Meghan says, we know the name Mariah Carey. It hasn't always been synonymous with extravagance. She grew up poor in a mixed-race family at a time when interracial marriages were pretty rare in the US. Her parents divorced when she was young. She moved around a lot, and their conversations begin with things that Meghan can relate to, a constant struggle to find her place to fit in. So Mariah talked about how she lived with her mom and moved like 14 times, and she said that she had nothing, no money. And she would always see people on TV, and she points out their hair that it was flowing in the wind, and that's why she always has the wind. And she didn't fit in. She said this, quote, "It would be more of the black area of town, or then you could be where my mom chose to live, where the white neighborhoods, and I didn't fit in at all," end quote. Meghan agrees and says that she understands that. So Mariah talks about going to school in a predominantly white neighborhood where she said, quote, "My mom felt comfortable and I tried my best to feel comfortable. But this kid was in the hallway and he said, quote, Mariah has 3 shirts and she wears them on rotation," end quote. And I was like, it was true, she says. And she found it strange that he had noticed that. And she said, quote, "Sings, why are you so obsessed with me?" But no, she was like, why do you care? But in a world where you're the mixed kid of a full-on white neighborhood, that's what you get, she said in quotes. So Meghan says this, quote, "Look, and this is a part of when I was putting this conversation together, I had to talk to you. Of course I had to talk to you. You were so formative for me. Representation matters so much. But when you are a woman and you don't see a woman who looks like you somewhere in a position of power or influence, or even just on the screen, because we know how influential media is, you come onto the scene," and I was like, oh my gosh, someone kind of looks like me, end quote. Mariah responded, "Did you feel like I know this person is like, I can tell she's black and white?" Meghan responds, quote, yes, I could feel that, yeah, even at that young age. And it's so funny because I remember when I was young, I can't put a number to it. I would imagine 12 or 13. And then Mariah interjects, "We don't want a number because they're gonna try and do the calculations. We don't believe in numbers," end quote. Wow, she's funny. And Meghan says, no. She went on to say that you were looking great. I had read this article about Halle Berry, and they were asking her how she felt being treated as a mixed-race woman in the world. Meghan went on to say, and her response was her saying, quote, "Well, your experience through the world is how people view you," end quote. So she said because she was darker in color, she was treated as a black woman, not as a mixed woman, end quote. So Meghan went on to say, and I think for us, it's very different because we're light-skinned. She went on to say, you're not treated as a black woman, you're not treated as a white woman, you sort of fit in between. She went on to say, quote, "I mean, if there's any time in my life that it's been more focused on my race, it's only once I started dating my husband. Then I started to understand what it was like to be treated like a black woman, because up until then, I had been treated like a mixed woman, and things really shifted," end quote. So Mariah responded, quote, "But That's an interesting thing, a mixed woman, because I always thought it should be okay to say I'm mixed. Like, it should be okay to say that, but people want you to choose. Meghan said yes. Mariah went on to say, and so, like my father's mother was Venezuelan, and my great-great-grandmother, right? But my father's family is black, so everyone is like, her father is Venezuelan and black, because they didn't know how to put me in that box. They want to put you in a box and categorize you, right? My mother is Irish all the way to the back of the Blarney Stone. You know, her whole family. Well, they disowned her when she married my father. Actually, they didn't know that she had gotten married. She went on to say, I looked at some older interviews that I had done, specifically one or two with Oprah, earlier on when I first started. And one of them my mother was on the interview and she was talking about it. So the podcast cut back to the clip from the Oprah interview and where it talks about her mother, Mariah's mother, Patricia Carey, talking about how they moved into a white neighborhood and she was the only person who purchased the house because they knew at the time that if her husband came with her, they would not get the house. That is so interesting. And I would like to interject here and say that there was a story that I was reading about a couple of weeks ago, just watching a story about mixed race couples in the US and how their homes were being devalued and the troubles they faced in trying to refinance their houses and getting quotes that were just and fair, and how some of the women who were married to the white men had to basically not be there when the evaluator came over because they found that the quote came in a lot lower when they were present. So it's interesting, and we're hoping that society makes a few more strides forward. So let's get back to the interview. So Mariah goes on to say, quote, so my mom, who was an opera singer and the whole thing, and put on the whole diva, like that was her thing, would go into the house and go to the broker or whatever it was and say, quote, oh, I'm buying this house, for me and my family. And my husband can't be bothered, quote. So her mom would cover for that. And she talked about not offending those on Long Island who were racist at the time, but Mariah goes on to say it was very difficult. And she says that it was not acceptable for the people at that time to see her dad and her mom together because they were mixed and they did not accept it, even though her father was an aeronautical engineer and her mom, was also a very beautiful woman. But it made people angry. That's what Mariah said. So Meghan went on to ask about her mom being an opera singer, and Mariah responded, yes, she made her debut at the Lincoln Center and she sang with the City Opera. She'd gone to Juilliard on a scholarship, and she was actually an opera diva, Mariah responded. And Mariah goes on to talk more about that to discuss what an opera diva is. She says if you look it up, the actual definition is a woman with typically an opera singer, usually soprano, in a coloratura range with a very high voice, very strong, powerful voice, and a talented woman, right? And the next definition right next to it is like a difficult woman, Meghan went on to say that how in the 17th and the 19th century that the word diva was used to refer to leading sopranos who had become so famous and celebrated, and they talked about how the term has turned. Mariah responds and says that she grew up with a real diva. So yeah, they say in the mid-20th century, both terms prima donna and diva, although still used in operatic terms, had become a more generalized and slightly derogatory remark referring to any ambitious, demanding woman in show business. So Meghan asks, is the word for you a compliment or a criticism? Mariah responds, quote, I think it's both. For me, I think it's both. I do. Because I know the origin of the word, but then I know, like as I was growing up, like I said, my mom was talking about a friend or something, quote, well, so-and-so is very much the diva, end quote. I didn't know if it was bad, good, or that's how she spoke. Like it's very much the grandeur of it all is what I envisioned. Meghan said glamorized? Mariah responds glamorized and fabulous and whatever. And then as things evolved, the past, 20 years, I don't know. It turned into the B word, she says. And they go on to talk about how life imitates art or art imitates life. And Mariah went on to this talk which segued into their hair, which was a very interesting part of the talk. So Mariah answers this. She talked about how in her Dream Lover video, they were saying that she was the girl next door because there was ambiguity around her, racially, that fed into that, and her curls. And she says, here's the thing, quote, I didn't know how to do my hair because if it was a white hairdresser that never dealt with textured hair, they would tend to do a different thing, and my hair would be like, quote, you're not doing that. And then if somebody that had only dealt with ethnic hair, it would become too much product, too much, you know? Wait, Meghan says, oh yeah, oh no, like shellacked, yeah, I know so much heavy hair grease, I know, like Murray's pomade. Mariah says Murray's, I can't even believe you just said Murray's. Meghan Markle said Murray's. Meghan says Murray's and pink hair lotion, forget it. It was like Mariah interjects, oh my gosh, no, it's just, you just use a tiny bit. And that's it. But I'm like, she goes, I'm digressing too much. Not at all, Meghan says, let's talk. Mariah, if we're talking here, Meghan says, we can talk here. They talk about how it was when they grew up. Mariah says, my mom didn't know like how to take the mats out of my hair. And she tells Meghan, I feel like you have a different texture. Meghan says, different texture than mine, she says, because when I grew up, it was a lot of like, I had baby hair that looked like this, you know, and as I got, to be about 12 or whatever, nobody knew how to do my hair, like even as a little girl. So my mom is white, my dad is black, as you know, and I think sometimes when it's the other way around, you get the benefit of someone who's dealt with textured hair. Meghan, well, or hold on a second though. No, because my hair is so curly, it's so thick. I just remember as a child, because my mom's black and my grandmother, Jeanette, would do my hair. She'd go, quote, just hold on to the sink, end quote, and I would grip my little hands on the both sides. Mariah responds, your grandma is your mom's mom, Jeanette? To which Meghan responds, my mom's mom. So you have no luxury of being tender-headed, because she would take the brush and just whoosh, whoosh. Mariah, no, just go through it. Meghan said, and then tied it, and those little like, Mariah interjects, they were like, is someone gonna fix this child's hair? And here Meghan says that she could have talked about their hair for so much longer, but eventually they did get back to the diva. Mariah goes on to say, yeah, the diva thing, it's interesting. I think everyone has a different thing, because to me it's so overused that it's become like she's the cupcake diva. Like they use it like a throwaway adjective that's just like whatever. Meghan says, you're right, it's definitely become more normalized, and I think in some ways I think of the word diva outside of Diva's Live, and I remember that concert in the 90s, and I had a whole different connotation. That was the glamour, that was the over the top and indulgence. And Mariah says, yeah, I got to sing with Miss Aretha Franklin. Mariah says that those were the moments that she couldn't have imagined as a child. She said those were the true divas. She also talked about Oprah's Legend Ball, a 3-day celebration that was held in May 2005, which honored and celebrated 25 African-American women in art, entertainment, and civil rights. And they also talked about Madame Price, and she said that she is one of the world's greatest divas by its purest definition. And they talk about how she had her own achievements. She grew up in the harsh grip of Jim Crow, and her immense talent and drive carried her to New York City to the Juilliard School of Music. She became one of the first women to be a leading performer in the Metropolitan Opera in New York City, and she debuted at the Met in 1961. Meghan said, there on the stage stood glamour personified under her layered costuming and out of her rouged lips. Her soprano aria soared over one of the world's most celebrated orchestras in the world, and the curtain fell and the audience exploded into an ovation. It lasted 42 minutes, to this day one of the longest ovations in the history of the Metropolitan Opera. And they go on to say that she went on to perform another 20 plus years. She's still alive, by the way, Meghan says, and she spent much of the last 30 years inspiring a new generation of divas, like Mariah Carey, whom you heard she met at Oprah's Legend Ball. So they go on to talk about so many other things, but this is another stand-up to me that Meghan asks one thing that I'm saying to everybody that I'm talking to. What are the 3 words, if you could use to describe yourself in 3 words as a young girl, what 3 words would those be? Mariah says, I just don't have 3 words. That's why people have to buy my memoir and watch the adaptation, because Meghan says, you can have as many words as you want. So Mariah responds, sad, lonely, and aspirational. There you go. Meghan says, you know, we'll go with sad, lonely, and eventually triumphant. Meghan says, and then today, 3 words to describe you today. Mariah says, exhausted, angry, yet hopeful. Meghan says, okay. But then Mariah goes on to say, but if I have to describe the whole thing, it's faith. Meghan says, yeah. Mariah says, honestly, the whole thing is faith. Meghan says, I've said often through especially the last few years of my life, my faith is greater than my fear. Whether that's faith in yourself or faith in God or faith in something bigger, whatever it is, it has to be bigger than your fear. Mariah says, I have a lyric from the song called Outside That, whatever feels other. This one line, I'll say it. If you use it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. Yes, I've been bruised. I've been destitute. I've seen life on many sides, been stigmatized, been black and white, felt inferior inside until my saving grace shined on me, until my saving grace set me free. And that is also swirling us back to faith. There's many ways of, expectation of things that are hoped for and yet unseen. And I always had to go back to that. They can call you whatever they want, but whatever I'm me. I don't want to be a person that's one note, one person. Like, that's no festive. That's not fun, she says, in quotes. She ends up by saying that it's okay, we'll all be fine, and Meghan agrees, we'll all be fine. Mariah goes on to say that she talks about the whole diva thing, and she says for her, it will continue to evolve. And I play with it, it's for laughs. And yes, some of it is very real. And another interesting point as Meghan talks about, her race and how it played into some of the mistreatment that she received at some sections of media. We always know that Meghan has always, in the past, identified as a mixed race, biracial woman. She owns both sides of her heritage, her black side, her white side, and she never made a, quote, big deal about it. But from the point she started dating Prince Harry, a lot of the slant of the coverage towards her started to point out her race, and as she said, they made her think about it more. And she's also talked about her experiences on being racially ambiguous and how she could be around a lot of people who would say the most vile things because they did not realize that her mother was black. She's proud of who she is. She said it in her first interview, sit down with Prince Harry. She's proud of who she is. But we've got to acknowledge that the criticism that has come against her is not just based on what she does. Even when they exited the royal family, what was it called? Megxit. They always talk about how she has dragged him away. We cannot compare the coverage that Kate has had in the past being called, quote, weighty Katie and on and on. Hers was racist. And why? Because she has black heritage. And now I think Meghan now knows that in a whole new way. She did talk about how she heard her mom being called the N-word, and now she's seen it being applied to her. In the past, people could not easily identify her, so she felt like a, quote, fly on the wall. But now she's out there, she has a huge profile, and people, they can say some of the most vile things towards her. And even remember the story of someone who was dating someone prominent in the UK, and her DMs were put out there, and she said that Meghan's seed would taint the line. So are they saying that because her dad is white? No, it's because her mom is black. So she says that now she's seeing that treatment of racism now more than ever. And I feel like that's something that we can all discuss here freely. So please share your thoughts on this in the comment section, on her talking about her own experiences with racism. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And by the way, it's not only racism. I will also say I think it's a mashup of jealousy and racism. Mariah Carey also goes on to talk about her own ambition, and she talks about some of the struggles that she went through as a young child as well. And she talks about her first marriage and how that people perceived her as a kept woman. And when she left the mansion that they bought, which she points out that many people did not even know that she had purchased half of it, that for her, it was a moment of transformation. She also talks about the song Butterfly, how it came to her. She talks about quite a few things and how she is ambitious. And even from a young age, she was ambitious. And for her, how she had witnessed her mother being at the mercy of the boyfriends she was dating at, her younger point in her life, it became a drive for her to be ambitious and to never experience the same things. She talked about also being a diva, and for her, how it's a type of persona as well that she plays for laughs, and her fans know that as well. But the standout for me is how she talks about her faith and how it informs her. So yes, a lot of interesting things that Mariah points out on her journey. They talked and touched on the fact that they've both gone through the experiences of feeling not able to fit in as biracial women. And they talked about, and of course Meghan pointing out that she was treated very starkly and differently when she married Prince Harry. So that's something that was also quite standout as well. And of course the laughs on the hair stories as well. Some light-hearted moments in this. So yes, I would like to know your standouts in the comment section below. Thank you for listening to this. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section, and a special thank you to those who support this channel, to my Patreon, PayPal, and membership supporters. I want to say a huge thank you. And I want to say thank you so much to special supporters. Thank you to Scotty and Norma Brown. Thank you for your support for my videos. It means so much. You are truly special in my heart. A special thank you to Gary Adderley as well, who's been a long-time supporter of this channel. You're truly dear to me, and I want to say thank you. And a special thank you right now to you, Aminata Jah. Thank you so much for all your support. It is so meaningful to me. And also a special thank you to those who gave during the last live. I want to give a couple of shout outs here. Thank you for your super chats and stickers. Nafisa Shabazz, thank you so much. As well as Bonnie, thank you. You always are so generous. And Lottie G, thank you for your giving during the premiere. I appreciate you so much. Thank you once again to all who support this channel. And to those who like, comment, and share, thank you. Once again, leave your comments below. Give this video a thumbs up. And I will catch you in the next one. Have a blessed one.